We want to talk about today is Nipsey Hussle. And
Nipsey Hussle, does that sound familiar to another name?
It certainly does. It's a play on Nipsey Russell. Is that right? Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And so, today we're talking about Nipsey Hussle and why it's important to know about him. And what is important in many ways is, unfortunately, that he did pass away. He was shot on Sunday, unfortunately, and then later died hours or minutes later, if you will.
Wow.
And really a sad situation. Many across the country are mourning his loss, and this mourning has been going on for several days now. There was a vigil for him on Monday. On Monday he was supposed to be meeting with the police, the head of police in LA as well, because he had a movement started to try to end violence in LA and across the country.
Wow, gang violence, absolutely. So what we're saying here is then the profile of Nipsey Hussle, not to be confused with the other, is someone who actually escaped the game enough to make money, but then go back into his own neighborhood and try to revitalize it, try to do his own restoration, if you will.
That's right.
And was starting to gain some traction.
He was.
And then he's taken out.
That's right. And so there are some people that are commenting on social media and other areas that were arguing, Nipsey, why go back to the neighborhood?
Yeah.
When you make it, what you do is you fly away and maybe you drop little dollars in the neighborhood, but you don't go back in the neighborhood and then create a store and all these kinds of things. And I'm just saying what some people are saying. I don't necessarily agree with that, but the theory on that is, when you become successful, and especially if you come from humble beginnings, and many of us know this, maybe experiences have started out, you can't control your beginning circumstances. But then when you rise above and everything, there are going to be some people who are going to be left behind. And unfortunately, those sometimes who are left behind are sometimes angry at God because they're saying, why not me? Why was I not blessed?
Right.
And they can be envious. And at times they can attack, so that is a natural thing that can occur.
So is this kind of like the crabs in a barrel theory that we always hear about?
Yeah.
When brother tries to get out of a situation, or anyone, the people who are the most jealous, the people who don't want to see you gain, pull you right back down as lobster's wood in a barrel.
That is the analogy. That is the analogy that's out there. And let's be real about this.
Yes.
It doesn't even have to be. You don't have to be a rapper. You can be a lawyer. You can be a business person, whatever it may be. When you start coming upon a lot of success, you're going to be coming into contact with a lot of new people, and you're going to be rising up, and it's really exciting and everything. At the same time, there are going to be people who may be left behind, and you may be entering into new worlds, and those people left behind, no fault of their own or your whatever, but they may become envious and upset, and the phrase haters comes to mind,
Yeah, and we have seen that. We've seen the jealousy that can create a rage, and we find out that today, especially if you're talking about in males,
good morning,
we're ultra competitive, and not that females aren't, but a lot of times males have the most fragile of egos. And so if, from what I understand, Nipsey told the gentleman who shot him, which they know it's a guy named Eric Holder now, is what I heard last.
Right, that's right.
And it turns out it's a personal dispute, even though
that's
people
right.
have some other theories as to what they
There are all kinds of theories out there, and those are lies.
And it was apparently Nipsey Hussle didn't want this guy around because he was known as kind of like damaged goods or a bad person. And he wanted him to leave his store because Nipsey owns a store, among other things.
Yeah.
And this guy couldn't take it that this guy was telling him what to do and telling him he couldn't come hang out. So then he chooses then to retaliate. And he shoots him, 6 times? Is that what it was? He was struck 6 times?
Yeah, and if you've seen the video, it's absolutely disgusting and horrible because, he shot him a couple times, walked away, came back, shot him again, left, came back, shot him in the head, and kicked him. It's just absolutely disgusting, the violence out there. and people can lose absolute control. And so there's no way to even legitimize anything that this Eric Holder did. And it's sad, but it's not new either. You know,
That's
violence. True. It begets violence, and at some point it all has to stop. You know, we've got to stop this very violent culture that we're living in.
Yeah, and I think this goes to a big, larger pretext and context.
What are you going to say? What are you going to say?
Which is this whole idea of the black on black crime.
Oh, okay.
And this context of see what happens, see what's going on, and then if you have these kind of images being blasted a lot, it tends to kind of, again, keep showing the same visuals.
That's right.
Over and over and over again to people. Like,
that's right.
What is going on with these young black males?
That's right. That's right. And, you know, I mean, there might be a component of that might be true here, but then there's also this other component that's just very much universal.
Yes.
It's just jealousy.
Yes.
You know, and then people wanting to be treated with dignity and respect. Here's something that's interesting. Yesterday, I know this is a little off topic, but it's sort of related. I was going to go to this event for Dallas Startup Week, and Mark Cuban was going to be speaking.
Oh, nice.
And so I showed up a little late, and there was supposed to be a crowd of 500 people in there. I walked through a door and expecting to see 500 people, you know, like getting in line and doing whatever. When I opened the door up, Mark Cuban's right there. And he's looking right at me, and he's like, "Hey, what's up, dude?" And so I'm like, "Hey, what's up?" You know? And then he's like, "Hey, I was trying to find the bathroom. You know where it's at?" I was like, "No, I don't know either." And so we're just having this little conversation. But, you know, here is Mark Cuban, a multi-billionaire, and who could have easily been like, "What the hell are you doing right here with me right now?" Like, whatever, because I apparently walked into some room I was not supposed to walk in, but it happened. But the way he treated and interacted was so respectful and just like, hey, we're just buds, you know? And so there's something to be said about kind of having a natural disposition of kind of, you know, trying to be very loving to one another and open and everything, you know, don't go crazy with it, you know, but, and we have to also think about where other people may be at. Yeah. And right now we have a very fragmented and fragile society where people are hurting, and the smallest things can cause people to just go off.
Yes, and so again, it makes, you know, you end up seeing these folks having to talk about it from a legal perspective, and so this goes right into my world of mental health.
Yeah.
Like, what's the mental health of Eric Holder, a guy who would pull out a gun and shoot a guy in broad daylight? This isn't at night. This is broad
daylight, and went back and forth. That's right.
Went back and forth about it. So when we look at stuff like this, and then we saw what Austin Sheffield did, you know, just punching this woman with just 5 blows, unrequited, didn't stop, just kept going. There's something now you have to say about what is going on with the mental health then of people in this country. And it doesn't matter which race or which gender or which group. Violence just happens. It will happen if anybody feels like in some kind of way they're slighted. Because anger has this piece of injustice underneath it. And so it's going to come out. It's either going to be bottled for a while and then explode on people, or they just explode on people right off the bat. And there is no waiting period. So you just don't know who's a ticking time bomb and who isn't.
That is exactly right. And, you know, I was just telling my son this morning about the phrase sugar and spice, how nice is sugar and spice, or whatever it goes. And I was telling him about that is that everybody likes kind words, generally speaking.
Yes.
And if you kind of put kind, sweet things out there and flatter, I'm not trying to say go crazy with it and everything, but like it works because everybody likes kind of bright, you know, cheerful things.
Yes.
And the deal is we should try to, when our interactions, be uplifting one another.
Yes.
If we can kind of keep that in the, you know, the forefront of our thought of, I don't know where this person is, if I can be a light and kind of shine. And Nipsey Hussle was doing that.
Yes.
In all fairness, he was.
He absolutely was. And so what we're talking about now is conflict resolution. And here's the thing. It shouldn't be just a corporate thing that we learn to be nice to each other in the office, so they send you through corporate conflict resolution training. This actually is a life skill that everybody needs to have. We need to understand that, right, Steve? So we need to be in a place where we don't necessarily, as soon as we hear something, automatically think this necessarily deserves a response. And what's more, an angry response. Sometimes it's just better not to even say things, not even go there. But conflict resolution, we've got to have that skill.
Absolutely.
In a world where information is flying by so fast that anything can upset you or turn over the apple cart.
That's exactly right, and especially in being as a lawyer in a negotiation context as well. The key, back to this conflict resolution you're talking about, is that you have to process information.
Absolutely.
And you have to be careful about how quickly you react to information.
That's great.
Or what someone may be doing to you. There's certain things that are, of course, life and death, you know. And then there's also someone sends a message and delivers a certain information that you may not like.
That's right.
We've got to be very careful and be deliberate and try to think through things as opposed to immediately acting. That's hard at times. It can be very difficult.
Yes, and that's the thing about people saying, you know, get out of your emotions. Like they said, you're
in your feelings.
You're in your feelings.
In your feelings.
Yeah, that's right. I've messed that up. Gosh, you know, I got to quit reading all these books I'm reading. Get back into the streets and get the real language going, the real vernacular. Well, you know, and it's true because as high-functioning mammals, humans are considered high-functioning mammals.
Right. That's
because we have the kinds of brains that can, number one, stop and assess what's going on. Then we have the ability to be creative about how we're going to solve something, and then we have the ability to collaborate. We can pull in things or people that will help us solve something. When you're out in the Serengeti, lion's just trying to eat that antelope. It's just all reaction, it's all guttural, it's all instinct, and the antelope better get out of there. And they're thinking that they got to just go. That's it. But see, we can sit back and go, you know what? Since we have a brain, you know, these antelopes keep coming at the same time of day. And they always seem to go to this one side. So if we just come there and I get a bunch of the rest of you lions to come with me, we'll just attack this one side. We can eat for weeks. That's not how they think. But we can do that as high-functioning mammals. So you look at this and you go, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
That a man can just say, you're not welcomed here because of the baggage you bring. And the other man says, my first move is to go reactionary, guttural.
Yeah.
And just a fire.
Yeah, so if y'all are just joining us, we're talking about Nipsey Hussle, his legacy, also talking about how it impacts the black community and the greater community as well.
Absolutely.
And we're talking about, you know, processing things and emotions and not necessarily reacting so quickly. You know, one other thing where we need to realize when we're interacting with one another, everybody's sort of it's a child of the universe, a child of God, or whatever it may be, and they have a mother and a father and people that love them. And part of Nipsey Hussle in this whole story is there is a love story behind it.
Okay.
You know, people are left behind that are hurt right now. You know, and it's very, very sad. You know, Lauren London, his sister, his family. There are people who are hurting, and a lot of people are very, very down about this situation. And that's what happens when you have violent actions. What's left behind are the people who are left behind who then become damaged.
That's right.
Or can be.
And then the cycle can then continue to fulfill itself because once an anger or an offense has been created, there's people who won't let that go, and then they'll keep it going. So it's almost like back in the old days, and even now, the military, the thought process was, if you're going to go in, you got to take out the whole village, because if you leave the sons alive, they'll come back and avenge you.
Right,
so the practice back then in antiquity was to go in, and if you have to, you take the spoils. You keep all of that, but you take care of all the sons and daughters, any remnant that could come back.
Yeah,
and shoot you down.
Well, so do you have advice? I see someone here, Jay Rich over here on Instagram, who is a rapper.
Yes.
He's my cousin. He's doing very, very well.
Well, good for you. Good for you, Jay.
And so, you know, I think there's things that are unique about that industry, just like there's unique things about the legal industry, negotiation, life coach, and everything else. And part of, I think, in the rap hip-hop culture, which I follow to a T, I love it. I wish I could rap. I would if I could. And sometimes I do in private.
We put some positive images out there, wouldn't we?
But it's a culture where you have to present yourself in such a way that have authentic, I think, street legitimacy. I'm saying it though. You got to have respect. And part of that is there's a part of it. There's like machismo, if you want to say that, or just being gangster or whatever it may be. And so, you know, but you got to have sort of like that element to be successful in there, I think. And so, what are your thoughts about these certain types of industries? And it's not just rap. There's other ones. If you want,
wrestling, WWE,
right?
MMA,
what about my son who does taekwondo?
Yes.
And part of the deal is getting in there and making yourself like an animal, and in one way, and intimidating other people, maybe or whatever. It's a whole, whatever. How would you coach someone like that? To ensure that they're still being positive and maybe don't encourage violence or whatever it may be?
Well, I think we have to find the correct word here for this. So if we're going to do this, Jay, we need to be thinking of what sells the best. Is it really just aggression and machismo? In some ways, violence, yes. But the real word here is authenticity. So can you be the authentic self? So most of these guys that are writing these lyrics never did half the stuff that they're saying in the songs.
Yeah,
but because it pays to see the visuals, then they keep showing us that. I would say as long as you're being authentic, and it's okay to be direct, like be fierce about making it. Not fierce about taking out people who upset you or thinking you do to women who reject you. No, talk about the fight, because it's still a fight, the fight to get to the top. And talk about it authentically, what you would really do, not some trumped up story that's somebody else's story that actually did spend time in the pen. Use yours and start there. And if you stay with that and you stay consistent with that, people have to say, well, hey, that's just who he is. That's who he's been.
Yeah, well, so here's the scary thing about that. I have to confess.
Okay.
What drew me to Nipsey Hussle was actually about a year ago.
Okay.
At the BET Awards. Good morning. He was trying to park his car, or his car was being parked, and somebody kind of caused an issue. And so he gets out of his car, and there's this guy there, and he's kind of running his mouth, and this is terrible, but it was just so funny. He just slaps the guy. I know it. And of course I'm just like, what? He slapped that dude. And it was hilarious. PJ, I'm sorry, I'm apologizing. But when I saw, I was like, who is that guy that just pimp slapped that dude? And it was Nipsey Hussle, and he did it, and it was just so, and I was thinking, golly, that was so amazing. But
and so you have the real story of it. And I remember in the movie Green Book, I laughed when Tony Lip slaps that guy that doesn't want to get the piano.
Right.
And I thought that was hilarious. But I think what this says then to all of us really is think about it. This culture sells a lot of things on violence and sex. That's what you're getting inundated with.
That's
if
right.
It's not some sort of sex scandal, then it's a violent scandal. And by the way, that's what Hollywood sells all the time to you. All these movies, pretty violent. All these Marvel movies, that's violent. People are punching people. People are taking people out. People get knocked through buildings. Your video games are violent. So in a way, you kind of almost expect a culture to pick up on some of these this messaging because it's violence or sex, and sometimes both.
Yeah. It is, and so that's part of what I don't believe in all this censorship and all that kind of stuff. I think people have to take things into context.
Truly,
I think you said this a while back.
Okay,
if it's something where okay, if I watch this or if I'm take part in this, I may not be able to handle it or whatever, then I may not need to be dealing with that.
That's right.
I guess that might be applicable in this situation too. Maybe it may not make sense to be watching such violent things if you think, okay, I'm going to act on it. But some people don't have a choice.
Correct.
And some people are living a life where they're in circumstances, and we have to understand that, where it's every day it is survival, and you better be on your P's and Q's because you just don't know what's coming around the corner.
That's right. It's as they said in the NWA movie, right? He says, what do you see outside your front door, is what O'Shea Jackson says, or his son playing him said that to him. And so he's saying that they are just reporting on what they see around them, which is one way, I guess, to say that. But I think the real thought process here is, what are the claims that you're making? It's always going to go back to that. If you're claiming to be a peaceful person, if you're claiming to be a rational person, if you're claiming to be a reasonable person, if you're claiming to be an educated person, if you're claiming any of those things, then you got to show your work. We got to see evidence of that, or else you're just talking, and we know about that.
And that's again back to the Nipsey Hussle and how this is so sad, because the path he was on, he was doing so many positive things, And it was just going to be so nice to see all the work he was putting in, the effort and work, the path, and then to be taken out in the midst of it and everything. Yeah. Where I guess maybe one takeaway is that many in the industry and people like you and I, we need to be thinking, okay, we can pick up from here and try to do some positive things to help the community and try to uplift people. You know, because one thing he was doing is also bringing light to STEM education in the community. That's right. You know, and also entrepreneurship and those kinds of things. You know, bringing it right back to the streets, back to the community, and that it needs to be encouraged and people need to be influenced by it.
That's exactly right. If I understand correctly, he was also he'd bought a plot of land that he was going to tear down what was on, I think it was retail, and put more of a living situation there so that he could then offer rent that could be affordable for people to get in there, because he realized if these people don't have a place to stay, then yes, they're going to be walking and wandering around the streets like the Walking Dead. So this guy was already working on things, and ironically, they were saying too, if I understand correctly, he was supposed to meet with the police to talk about gang violence. That's right. That's right. And then, of course, he gets taken out by something the very week that he's supposed to do. I think it was supposed to be today. He was supposed to go do.
Oh, it was. Yeah, that might be right. Yeah, like I couldn't remember if it was the 1st of April or whatever. Yes. But in any event, yeah, it unfortunately that meeting did not happen. I think they're going to try to reschedule it and try to bring some other people in as well. But hey, I mean, what do you guys think? Hello, hey, how are you doing, Barbara? Do you have any thoughts on this subject related to Nipsey Hussle and just our where we are, in society and the violence and how we can curb violence and stop it?
Yeah, I think one of the things we have to protect, guys like yourself and me and many of the professionals that we know, especially if they're people of color, is we have to show people that what you're seeing now in the media is not the culture. It's the effects of some really bad mental health that's gone wrong with other programs that let people down. There's a bunch of things that help create some of these people that we see walking around. What we don't want is people looking at it going, oh, that's just their culture. They're just violent like that. They just do things like that, right?
Right.
It shouldn't be seen as just the culture of black people and then be seen as this is how you should probably look at how they will handle problems and issues. Because with the brain, we habituate things that we see over and over and over and over that are repeated again, and then we think it's true, and that's an implicit bias because it's an attitude or a stereotype that you're not consciously aware of that is helping you select and choose who you think are the people that you most want to be around or not want to be around.
So you may want to say that was pretty heavy and deep, and I like that. You may want to say that again.
Okay. So what we don't want, because I think this will create a bigger barrier between people trying to interracially talk to each other, connect with each other.
Right.
Because if you don't live like this, this is wild to you to see that.
Right.
How many people get into a disagreement but don't get shot in front of their own store, right?
Yeah.
So what we don't want is, and everyone in America, everybody listening, this is not necessarily the image
That's right.
of African Americans. This is a problem that has some mental health components to it, and some other social, political, and economical
I'm glad you point that out, too, because a lot of times you don't analyze, violence committed by people of color and think about, mental health. Yes. We don't get there. We get there usually when it's somebody else, and then we're thinking about the mental health. But it applies here as well.
Absolutely.
If you pull a gun out because somebody says, could you leave my store, and you shoot somebody, that is a mental health issue. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, if you could get to that anger, I would say the same thing with Austin Sheffield. The fact that you hit somebody who was not fighting you back, and you go harder as you go in, there's an anger, there's a mental health imbalance right there as well. Yeah. So we're seeing this, but we don't want to call it this sometimes. We just think, oh, that's just a bad dude. But why is that a bad dude? Why is this person acting this way?
Yeah.
Chances are they've learned some behavior.
That's right.
Where did they get it from? And if they've learned that behavior somewhere, they decided this isn't that bad. Once again, like we said in movies, the best villains are the ones who don't think that they're the bad guy.
Well, and let me tell you something. He's not the only one, because when I've looked at the video and some of the comments I've received on there, there are a lot of people who, some of them don't necessarily disagree with what he did. which is pretty sickening. And just an update on that.
Talking about us in Sheffield.
Yeah, us in Sheffield.
Okay. Yeah.
Miss Lee was charged yesterday
with a felony.
Yeah. And that one was not sent to the grand. It's not being sent to the grand jury for an indictment, which is, I think, a very weird charge. Sometimes you just don't know what is really going on, and are people really thinking through things? But that's why we have a process, and we have to go through it. But part of the issue with our legal system, our legal process, and I will criticize it at times, is that in Sheffield's case, when he goes, when they present the evidence to the grand jury. Hearsay and all kinds of evidence can go in there. And also, his defense attorney can deliver a packet. And this packet, the grand jury would have to look at. And it could be all kinds of exculpatory information or self-defense or whatever it may be. And the issue also is, who are the members of the grand jury? And many times, those people may not necessarily reflect the demographics of the community in which one's a part of.
Truly.
And so that's a huge criticism of our process that needs to be dealt with. And I hope that it works out and things are done in a very fair manner. But that's something we're going to have to definitely keep our eyes and ears on in the coming days to see how this works out.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I would just say real quickly, from the behavioral side, we all really need to check. It's kind of funny in a way, but not funny. And that is, you remember in Genesis, God said to Cain, "Where's your brother?" And he's like, "What am I, my brother's keeper?"
I knew you were going to say that.
Right?
I know, PJ, right? I knew you were going to come up.
Yes, you knew it. You knew it. And there's also a verse. I love this, Steve. There's a verse in the Bible that says, "An anger when mild turns away rage." It's in Psalms, I believe. Psalms are probably.
Well, that's back to what I told my son about sugar and spice.
Yeah. So here's the thing. It's like, we are our brother's keeper.
We are.
We're all community. We all, as Sting said with the Police, we're all in one big boat because one world is enough for all of us. That's
right.
The way the song goes.
That's right.
So if that's the case, guys, we got to agree that when there's issues like this, they need to be addressed, not scooped under the rug, and not blamed to, oh, well, that's just how those people act. We've got to, more than ever, say we got to start having some conversations. We've got to start mobilizing.
We do.
And then we got to take smart people, let us get some of this traction to go out there and show, look, here's what actually does happen when people get together, right? Because that's what he was doing. Nipsey said, yeah, I used to be in a gang back in the day.
And I can relate to them.
And I can relate to them.
Yeah.
And I've got the tattoos and everything to show. But I stepped out of the game to recognize that the game wasn't worth the game to play. And he then starts to turn around, and that's what we always love. We always love to see the underdog start to win.
That's right.
He was starting to win. He didn't have no major money, but he sold tapes out of his car. He sold his own music without a record label at first until he got one.
Well, I think he had a net worth of about $12 million or something like that.
Yes. You talk about self-made. This guy was absolutely doing that.
Yeah.
And then to have him be taken out if people aren't frustrated with that. And not just African Americans. Everybody should be frustrated with the fact that here's a great redemption story that was starting to line things up in a good way.
That's right.
And it got perverted.
That's right. That's right.
Snuffed out.
Well, and so guys and gals, we are coming to the end here. We want to thank you for joining us. We want you to like and share, and you can find me on YouTube, Bold Creations Holding. Would love for you to go there. Lots of interest and dialogue, and subscribe. And also you can find me on Facebook here and on Instagram on E. Steve Bolden. And also I have the Boss Negotiator School on Facebook. Especially if you want to focus on negotiation, you definitely got to go to the Boss Negotiator School.
That's right. And you can find me PJ Dunn TV. So when you're done watching Steve's videos, come on over, watch mine. If you want to understand behavioral science, why people do what they do, and help to have that conversation, you can do it there, PJ Dunn TV. Please subscribe to that. You can also find me on Twitter, Facebook under the name PJ Dunn, and on Facebook, Dunn Coaching, Dunn Consulting. So that's how you can find us.
Yeah. So, hey, and if you got any questions, anything you want to follow up on, please send comments down below. We will respond. Someone is saying here, Barbara Thomas. imbalance. How can we handle conflict in a positive manner? I agree there is a mental health imbalance. And Barbara, we answered the question a little earlier and everything, but we're going to keep working on that. And I really do, really do appreciate that comment. And we'll probably add on to that as well in the comments and everything.
That's right. We'll meet you all in the comment section for sure.
Okay. Hey, thank you, everyone. Really do appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your day, and let's be positive.
That's right. Make it a great day because you can.
All right. All right. All right.